Hello, my name is Lindsay Poisson, and I'm an admissions counselor here at Seattle University. Thank you for joining us. This is a test optional information session, so we'll go ahead and dive right in and get started. I'm going to share my screen with you. Wonderful. All right, so we like to start with a little bit of context. Testing hasn't been around forever, and it's kind of a young process. It's about 65 years old, and we don't believe that it necessarily determines a student's academic abilities. When you're moving through this application process, you'll see different university stances on testing and their policies. So here are a few terms that you might want to be familiar with. Text flexibility. So this is something you might see, and what this means is that you can submit either or. You can submit the SAT or ACT. You'll oftentimes see this at more competitive schools. So they give you the choice of the type of test you would like to submit. Another policy that you might see when you move through this application process is test blind. What that means is that they don't look at test scores whatsoever. They actually suppress them through the application process where the counselors cannot see them as part of the review, and they will not accept your test scores. And then last but not least is test optional. And that gives you the option between the two. So if you want to submit them, you're welcome to. And if you do not want to submit them, that's an option too. So here at Seattle University, we are test optional. This is one of the most general terms. So this might be something that you would want to follow up with each and every institution to clarify what their test optional policy. For some students, it might affect their scholarship. It might affect other factors. We'll go into detail with how it affects the Seattle University application process. But that's something that you may want to follow up with each and every university that your student is applying to. All right, so how does this work at SU? SAT or ACT exams are optional for all first-time in college applicants. So that is up to the student if they would like to submit it or not. Students are not required to submit their test scores in order for their application to be complete. So there will be nothing missing if they do not submit test scores. SAT and ACT scores are not required to directly enter into any SU programs. So direct entry programs, what are direct entry programs is a big question that we get. What direct entry programs are, it means that you can apply directly to a major and you're automatically admitted in without any sort of reapplication process. So some programs that are not direct entry have a provisional admit where then you have to reapply during your, say, junior year after you complete prerequisites at some point later on. Here at SU, we have all direct entry programs. So that means that the program that you're applying to, if you're accepted and admitted, you're in. If you're in, you're in. You do not have to reapply at any point in time. So here at Seattle University, you do not need to submit test scores to be admitted to any of our programs. So just know that we are test optional through and through. Students do not need to, I had already mentioned that, students do not need to reapply to their major. So just hammering that point home, making sure that you know that there's no reapplication process. How will Seattle University evaluate my application without test scores? So this is a wheel that we use pretty frequently when we talk about our holistic review here at Seattle University. We're looking at all sorts of things. We're looking at the transcripts, what kinds of courses your student is taking. So AP, IB, dual enrollment. We're also looking at grade trend. Has there been an incline or decline in grades? Has it been steady across the board? These are all important things for us to look at. We're also looking at GPA, weighted and both unweighted. And then test scores, if you choose to submit them, we'll look at those too. We're looking at major prerequisite requirements. So if your student is applying to, say, the nursing school, then we want to look at their science grades and their math grades. Same with like business and College of Science and Engineering in general. But then there's the whole other side of what makes a student and who they are and why they'd be a fit for Seattle University. So we're also looking at leadership and activities, different types of involvement. We're looking at the personal essay as a writing sample, but also an opportunity to hear from the student directly. And then letters of recommendation. So hopefully a counselor and a teacher are able to comment on each student's academic achievements and strengths and who they are as a person. So if you were to imagine removing test scores, you would simply take this out of the chart and each other piece would get a little bit larger. So again, it wouldn't be that there would be a missing piece, it just simply wouldn't be part of the equation. All right, another very common question, how will this affect my scholarship? Scholarships will be awarded the same way we review, so holistically. And you will not be penalized or disadvantaged in any way. Test scores will simply not be assessed if you choose to opt out of reporting your scores to SU. So similar to that review process, you can think of the way that we award scholarships and the calculation we use, that test scores are simply removed, right? It's not a detriment, it's no loss of money, it just simply is not a part of the process. How do I apply test optional to SU? So this is kind of more specific in the details through the application process. It'll be completed through the Common application. So we're located on the Common app, you can find us there, and you'll add Seattle University as a school that you're applying to. And then within the Seattle University application, that is where you would elect to not report scores. Make sure it's within the direct application. Your student might be applying to schools that do require test scores. So if you update that for the entire Common app, just know that that will go to all schools. So make sure you make this adjustment within the Seattle U direct application. Adjustments can be made up until the application is submitted. At that point in time, whatever you have chosen will be finalized. We do understand that this year specifically may prove to have some challenges. So if your student has opted to take a test, they are signed up for it, and then for some reason that is canceled, my recommendation is to reach out to the assigned admissions counselor, and that way we can correspond with the student and figure out how to review the application based on what they've submitted and what they're actually capable of completing in terms of sitting for a test. All right, and who does this apply to? Everyone, absolutely everyone. So just know that we are test optional through and through. For this year specifically, it does apply to homeschool students. So we understand that access to tests are very, very difficult. From here on out, we will remain test optional. So this is a new policy for us, but not just for a year, it's from here on out. The one thing that may be adjusted or changed after this year would be for homeschooling students. So check back with us next year if your student is a junior and you would like to verify if they are homeschooled and if they need to submit test scores. All right, things to consider when making this decision. This decision can be kind of paralyzing at times to determine if you should test or if you shouldn't test. So one thing to consider is access to testing sites. This is a year unlike any other year. So we understand the risk of sitting for a test. And also, is there opportunity to sit for a test? And you can contact the College Board and ACT's official site to determine if there is tests near you that are available to you. Another question to ask yourself is, should I test, right? Is this something that will add to my application? Is this something that is going to cause me more anxiety and stress than I need and take away focus from getting really amazing grades during this first semester of senior year? So considering the time and the investment of taking a test and what that might cost you in terms of energy and resources too. This is an expense to take a test. Another thing to consider is what will represent me best as a student on my application. If you have a student who tests really, really well and they can really show their academic abilities through standardized testing, then maybe it's in their best interest to sit for the test. Or if they have had have been struggling with their GPA and in the classroom for the past few years, but they know that they're a strong test taker, then maybe it is a benefit to sit for a test. But for students who know that they don't want to sit for a test or don't believe that testing is an accurate depiction of their academic abilities, that is totally fine. In that situation, you are more than welcome to opt out of submitting a test. Another thing to consider is to assess your entire application process. So this is even outside of Seattle University. Every school has different policies. So make sure that you research every single institution that you're invested in and that you're applying to. You just want to make sure that you're meeting their requirements and that your application would be complete. It would be a huge bummer if you submitted everything and then realized that they do require tests and you had already paid for the application. And we want to make sure that students do that research on the front end, so you're able to move through the application process as smoothly as possible. And that goes for all schools, again, not just Seattle University. All right, logistics, I had mentioned before, but we are transitioning to test optional from here on out. So just know that's our formal policy. And again, I had mentioned it before, but monitor College Board and ACT for the latest updates if you are considering testing. All right, so frequently asked questions. What can I do to make my application look competitive for Seattle U? And the answer to that is there's different pieces of the application where you can really allow for yourself to shine through, your authentic self. So if you feel like maybe your transcript is not reflecting your academic abilities and you know you can't sit for a test simply because there's no access, really take the time to curate and edit and have someone review your personal essay. That's an opportunity for students to really, really shine, both as a writing sample, but also as a direct line of communication to the admissions counselor, communicating why they're a fit for the university they're applying to. Other missed opportunities that students don't always take advantage of is connecting with the counselor directly. So we host different sorts of informational interviews, we host visits, we are online now for this year with tons of programming and events. So show up, show your interest, connect with your counselor. We're also available by phone and through email. So if there's anything important that you think that we should know when reviewing a student's application, send it to us through email. We want to hear from students directly. And that is something that we consider as we review applications. All right, another very specific but frequently asked question: if I initially applied test optional and say I was deferred to regular decision, can I update my application to include standardized testing? And the answer is no to that. Because you have opted to not submit your test scores before, we will hold you to that decision. We don't want this to become something that is, again, like a paralyzing decision, or this idea that you need to create more work for yourself or have to have a strategy to your application. We simply want this to be an opportunity for students to lead with their best foot forward. We want your application to be a positive reflection of you as a student. So if for some reason you are deferred, we will only be reviewing your first semester of your senior year's grades as part of our discernment process if you're a fit and if we can admit you to the university. Who should I contact if I have questions? Contact us. We are here to help you in any way we can to answer any questions or concerns you might have about this new test optional policy. So feel free to reach out. We'd love to hear from you and make sure that everything makes sense and that you feel confident submitting your application. All right. So thank you so much for joining me for this brief presentation. Again, if you have any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to reach out as a parent, as a student, as family, or a supporter. We want to make sure we can answer any questions and again, make this application process as smooth as possible. Thanks so much and have a great day.